Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's live Q&A. Thank you so much for coming through. I'm excited to have you here, and I hope you have had a wonderful day, a wonderful week so far. If you have not had any of those days or any of those two things, fret not. These things happen, and tomorrow is another day. So I hope everybody is doing great. I have a bunch of questions today from you guys, and that is what I will be answering. First and foremost, I want to address something that was brought to my attention, which is the issue of how expensive therapy is. And so the question came in as, hi, I'm very curious about why therapy is so expensive and why is it so expensive and what can we do to make those expenses go down. And so that is the first question I'll be answering. I'll be answering why therapy is so expensive. My answer to that question usually starts with expensive compared to what? Because I want to know what you're comparing that expense to. When you go to like a private hospital, doctors charge almost 4K or 5K for consultation, and it's not an entire hour. Your consultation never takes an hour. But with therapy, it's an entire session. Even if the therapist charges you 2,500 or even 1,000 shillings, it's for an entire hour. You get to spend with a competent, well-trained mental health professional. And maybe you should think about how many times do you get the opportunity to sit with a professional in their field for an entire hour when they are focusing on you and you only. So that is the first way I like looking at it. So when we say it's expensive compared to what? But above and beyond that, if you go to a therapist who charges, remember the charges differ. So some therapists charge 2,500, some therapists charge 5,000, some therapists charge 10,000, others charge 500 shillings. If you don't have that money, it will always feel expensive. So if you go to a therapist who charges 500 shillings and you don't have 500 shillings, it's going to feel like it's expensive. And that's the same case if you go to a therapist who charges 10K and you don't have 10K. So maybe the other way of looking at it is to find out which mental health professional you're working with and where you're getting those services from. Of course, mental health services from a public hospital are going to be cheaper compared to mental health services in a private hospital. And that's another way of looking at that particular issue of expensive. So where are you getting these services? Who is providing them for you? And how much are they charging? And how does that compare to your monies? How much does that compare to how much money you have to use for therapy services? So that is something that is important. You need to know who the therapy provider is and how much they're charging, and if that is pocket friendly to you, because everybody has a different range when it comes to money. I know there are different mental health professionals who offer different rates for different people. So I know there's a mental health professional who will be offering 500 shillings for therapy sessions, and they also have 2,000 shillings per session depending on who they're charging. When you look at some organizations, they have different charges, different packages for different individuals, and so you'll find that maybe students get mental health services at a cheaper rate compared to other people. So consider where you're getting your mental health services from and why and how much they're charging compared to how much you have to use for mental health services. That could be the reason why it feels like it's too expensive. Something else that we keep forgetting is that mental health professionals have, especially mental health professionals who are in private practice and they have offices they have to run. Those people have so many expenses. You have to pay rent for the office, you have to pay tax, you have to pay your employees if you have any, you have to pay for Wi-Fi, you have to pay for lights. There's always something that you have to pay for. And so, even if you get a client who pays you, let's say 2,500 per session, that 2,500 is not going to your pocket as a therapist. It doesn't go all of it to your pocket. Most of it will go to running the expenses of the office. So when we say that it's expensive, we also have to remember that these mental health professionals are paying for other things outside of just seeing you one-on-one, and all that money does not go into their pockets. The other thing is that mental health professionals need a lot of studies after graduating. So when you finish school for mental health professionals, you always go and take on additional classes. Sometimes they are in different fields. You'll find that some people are doing things like trauma counseling. They go get a certificate or a diploma, addictions counseling, and different types of things. They will always be, as a mental health professional, you're always upskilling on a daily basis. And there's never one day when you get to a point where you've done everything. And those things require money. You are expected to pay for those things. And in some countries, you cannot maintain your license if you don't go for those continuing professional development classes. So you'll find that a therapist has to charge X amount of money because that money has to cover for some of these things they have to do for them to retain their license. Above and beyond that, therapists have families, therapists have needs for their own homes. They want to eat, they want to put a roof over their head, and sometimes when all their work is is focused on the client, they have to charge what they need to charge so that they don't go hungry. So yeah, so think about your therapist like that. Consider them to be humans who have needs, and also consider that they have to pay for things. They have to pay for their licenses. They have to pay for belonging in a body, in any professional body. You have to pay annual fees to those bodies. So there's a lot that goes into it. And also school is very expensive, as you all know, especially if you took any loans to go through school. It's very expensive, having to pay back those loans with interest. It just takes a lot of money. So look at therapy as a place where you can get services, and different mental health providers offer different rates for different people. And again, be keen on where you're getting your services. So don't go to a therapist who offers something that is way beyond your finances and then feel like they're charging you expensive. If that's their rate, that's their rate. So it's advisable to go to somebody who offers a rate that is friendly to your pocket. That is my biggest piece of advice. Moving on swiftly to the next question. How do you deal with grief, especially for the avoidant people like me? Grief is a big deal. We all go through grief in one way or another, or even if you're not going through grief, we always find ourselves supporting somebody who's going through grief. Grief is a painful experience. It never gets easier. Nothing prepares you for it, and you go through it when you go through it. So how do you deal with the grief then if you are avoidant, like this person who sent in this question? The first thing I would say is get rid of any notion of how dealing with grief is supposed to look like. So if you have an idea in your head that when somebody is grieving, they need to act in certain ways, or they need to be in certain ways, or they need to do X, Y, and Z for them to go through the grief, forget all those notions. Grief is different for everybody. People go through mental health issues on their own. And if you go through grief and you react in one way, it doesn't mean that it's wrong for you to react in the way that you did. Your grief manifests itself the way it does, and you have to give yourself the grace to go through that, to go through those motions. So consider that there's no one way of going through grief. There's no one template that you need to follow, and there's no one expectation that you will go through grief like so and so. So even if it's in a family setup, let's say it's in a family setup, and you lost, if it's kids, you lost a parent. Different kids in the family will act differently during their grief, because we all grieve differently. So you acting different does not make your grief lesser, or does not make your grief worse than the other person's grief. It is just your way of going through grief. So forget any notion of how it is supposed to be, and just go through grief the way it shows up in your life. The other thing that I like pointing out is also the fact that you need to forget the timelines. There are people who expect, who will tell you it's been a year, you need to stop grieving, you need to move on. It's been 6 months, it's been 1 month, it's been 10 years, you need to move on. Forget those timelines. Again, grief takes as long as it takes, and your work is to give yourself the grace to go through that experience. So if you're under the impression that you have to go through grief for 6 months and then you will be fine, and 6 months come and go and you're not yet where you need to be, do not see yourself as a lesser person for not being able to go over grief in those 6 months. It will take as long as it will take. My biggest advice is give yourself the grace to go through that process, and make room for other things in your life, even as you go through grief. So don't let grief be the only focus in your life. And it is not a betrayal to whoever you are grieving for you to have a life even outside of that grief. It is totally okay for you to have moments of grief, to go through the pain, and it is also okay for you to have other things that go on in your life, to find pockets of joy and moments that bring you happiness even when you're grieving. So it's not a betrayal, and it also does not invalidate your grief if you go through moments of happiness. It is okay for you to go through that. the other thing I would say about this avoidance is recognizing which emotions the person is avoiding. So they have said that especially for avoidant people like me, I'll be very curious about what emotions you're avoiding, and asking yourself, constantly questioning yourself about why are you afraid of this thing that you're avoiding, what does it bring out in you, and why are you so afraid of it. And if it is you're afraid of leaving, if you're afraid of, again, feeling like you're betraying the person you're grieving for having a life, then I would highly recommend that you also forget that, because it's not a betrayal. The person you lost would have wanted you to have lived a life. And so don't lose what you have right now to the person you lost, just because you think that having moments of happiness is a betrayal to the grief that you're going through. Happiness and grief can coexist. There's no expectation that only one thing happens at one time. It's okay for both of those things to grieve. Yeah, that is how I would deal with that. So deal with grief, take it as it comes, one day at a time. Take care of yourself in the process. Do not forget your mental health. Seek help when you can find it. Accept it when it is offered, and do not live like you have to be isolated completely just because you're going through grief. I think that is an important thing that needs to be mentioned. There was another question that came in. Let me just confirm about what do you think? Do you think the government of Kenya is doing the best it can in addressing its citizens on issues concerning mental health? I think the government is trying, but there's still more that needs to be done. And we are not at a place where we can say that mental health issues have been addressed and now we are doing well and everything is going perfectly. There's more that can be done. Especially a lot of education, psychoeducation on mental health issues, and psychoeducation that is backed by the government, because of the financial aspect. So if the government can put more money into putting out educational material, engaging citizens on mental health issues, and bringing the mental health conversation into the forefront, I think that would be a big deal. So I think the government is doing something, because now we have the mental health task force, we have the mental health bill, we have so many things that are going on in that front, but there's still more that can be done. We still need more opportunities for mental health professionals to be hired into public hospitals and offer mental health services, because there are so many counselors out here who do not have jobs, so many types of mental health professionals who do not have jobs, and they could offer their services if only they were given the opportunity. So if the government can find a way of creating these opportunities, opening up jobs, allowing mental health professionals to come and work in hospitals, so that mental health can be offered alongside other services in the hospital, I think that would be a big deal. So the government can do more, and this is a call to action. Government, please pull up your socks. I think that is an important thing. Somebody was curious about why I got into counseling and how it has been so far. I can say that I got into counseling because I keep saying this, that I want to make the world a less lonely place for even at least one person. So my desire to get into counseling the mental health profession was to make at least one person feel less lonely in the world, at least one person feel seen, feel heard, feel at least one person to know that there's someone out there who cares and who wants the best for them, even when the world seems dark sometimes. And so my desire to help, my desire to be there for people, people who don't have people in their lives, that is my desire for them, to always know that they have a mental health professional on their side, on their corner, who is rooting for them, and just to share the knowledge that I have gained. And if it's the main reason why I also do some of these things like this Instagram lives, just to pass this information so that you don't have to struggle in silence, so you don't have to suffer in silence, you don't have to think that you have to go through the struggles of life alone. You don't have to. You're suffering unnecessarily if you are locking yourself out there and not seeking services that are easily available. And so my work focuses on just offering the help and support I can give, and using my knowledge to make the world a less lonely place, make the world a more welcoming place, and to just remind you that you're not alone. You never have been, and you don't have to be. So yeah, again, reach out if you have anything. My DMs are always open. I want us to have honest conversations about mental health. I don't want you to put up a facade or feel like you have to pretend to be something you're not for you to be acceptable to me as Jennifer. So always come to my DMs. Let's talk about mental health issues. Let's be honest about the conversations. Let's bring vulnerability and honesty to these things, so that people don't have to keep pretending, and so that you always know that you are worthy the way you are, and you don't have to pretend to be something that you're not for you to be acceptable. It is okay for you to present yourself as you are, and you're worthy, you're good enough. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have to put on a mask for you to be worthy in my presence, especially. And even if you don't have those people in your life whom you can go to with your honest you, I want you to always know that Safe Space Arena, Jennifer, as a person, this is a place where you can come and be the honest you, because that is the community I'm trying to build. Staki tudanganyane ati we have to pretend to be something we are not for us to be acceptable. So even if out there hauna watu who you can be honest with, this is me telling you that I'm always here to have honest and raw conversations about life, about mental health, about struggle and pain and success and happiness and all the things that happen in life. And you don't have to present yourself in a certain decorated manner for you to be acceptable to me. I'm looking for real people we can have real honest conversations with. So yeah, that is my agenda, and that is why I got into counseling. How has it been so far? It's been magnificent. I have had a wonderful time. I've met wonderful people through, in the sense in that I've met clients that I've enjoyed working with. I have met mental health professionals that I have thoroughly enjoyed working with, getting to know them. I have met other people outside of the mental health field who have been very wonderful colleagues, who have been very wonderful collaborators. I have met so many people. Some of you come into my DMs and we talk all the time. I've been able to meet people who send me emails and they ask me questions and we discuss. It's been so good. I have enjoyed the entire experience, and I believe there's still more out there, and I can't wait to experience it all. That's why I think I'm very passionate about this profession, because there's a lot, and you meet people, and it just brings so much life to it. It affirms to you that humanity is headed in the right direction. So I get happy when I meet people and we talk about mental health stuff and we talk about the human condition and everything, and getting to do that as a job is very fulfilling for me. And also being able to offer help, people telling me that they have benefited from the work that I do, that makes me very happy. It reminds me that I am doing valuable work. So every time that somebody comes through and they're like, I watched one of your videos, I gained something, it made me think of life differently, or somebody comes to me and they're like, thank you for the sessions that we had, they thoroughly they changed my life, they helped me make decisions, they helped me move forward, they helped me find motivation to face my fears and to build a life that I really love. That always makes me super happy, because I realize that I'm doing valuable work. So yeah, that is why I'm very happy and passionate about this job, because there's always something out there. Let me see if there's another question before I end this live. Yes, somebody was asking, what should a counselor do when a client feels like they were making significant progress on the recovery road from an addiction, but then they relapsed, making them feel ashamed to approach you, and they start avoiding you altogether. So this is something that is very common, and of course the biggest influence of this behavior is shame. When the client feels like they let down the therapist, it can become very shameful. But the person is asking from the counselor's point of view, what should the counselor do? And in my opinion, the counselor should create a very healthy environment where the client feels that they can always come back to the therapist, even if they, in quotes, mess up. So the therapist should be a safe space for the client. The therapist should be a place where the client feels, no matter what I do, I will always be accepted here. Unconditional positive regard. Therapists who are listening to this can attest. Unconditional positive regard is one of the biggest factors. So as a therapist, as a counselor, make sure that you are creating an environment that is very welcoming to your client, an environment they feel that no matter what they do, no matter what mistakes they make, they can always come back to therapy, because you're not there to judge them. You're there to offer them support. You're there to listen to them, offer empathy, offer support, psychoeducate, and use the skills and the knowledge that you've been equipped with in school and outside of school to help them get to the place they want to go. And relapse is a common thing. There is nothing shameful about relapse. It's part of life. It happens to the best of us. And if you are, as an individual, are going through a moment where you find yourself relapsing, then this is me reminding you that it is part of life. Mistakes happen all the time, and it doesn't make you a lesser human being. If anything, it makes you a human being, to remind you that you're not perfect and you will make mistakes. So do not feel like you have to be perfect for your therapist. Your therapist is not looking for perfection, and if your therapist is looking for perfection, then there might be a problem there. So as a therapist, offer non-judgmental, safe space for your client to always come back and to always know that you support them. No matter what happens, you are on their corner, you are on their side. As a client, when you relapse, when something happens, when you make a mistake, always remember that your therapist is there for you. Your therapist is looking to support you and to help you. And you coming to therapy is always a good thing. And you making a mistake is only part of being human. And it is totally acceptable and okay. And there's nothing shameful about it. Do not judge yourself. Do not beat yourself up. Do not hide yourself. Do not run away from therapy because you feel like you've made a mistake. Your therapist is not your prefect. Your therapist is not your boss. They're not going to punish you in any way. If anything, they want you to come back so that you guys can work together on solving the problem and finding easier coping ways and better ways to solve the problem. So yes, I think that is how I would address that, and that is how I would look at it. There's one more question that I want to address before I end this live, which is, how do you differentiate your professional life from your personal life? Boundaries. There's no other answer. Boundaries is the answer. When it comes to be doing the work as a mental health professional, it is very easy to find yourself in a place where your work and your job, the line becomes too blurry. Your work and your life, the line becomes too blurry in that place. And it is up to you to create boundaries, to enforce those boundaries, to always remember that your work has to end at some point and you have to have a life outside of therapy. Otherwise, you're going to get burnout. Otherwise, you're going to hate your job. Otherwise, you're going to start getting tired of listening to clients because you are tired. You're constantly tired, you're burnt out, and the work is becoming a problem to you. And especially with our profession, which is very sensitive, the fact that we work with people who are going through some very difficult things. They're going through some things that have never been discussed anywhere outside of therapy with anybody, and we are their confidants. We are the people that help them feel human and validated. It can become very emotionally overwhelming for many clients. It can become very emotionally heavy for the therapist. So as a therapist, you need to draw the line. You need to know your boundaries. You need to know where work starts and where work ends. You need to, for example, when it comes to emergency contacts for your clients, you can't be your client's emergency contact. You need to protect yourself in the sense that you realize you're not an emergency contact, and so they need to have somebody else as their emergency contact. And also connecting your client to resources like helplines that work 24/7, so that if your client is struggling with something, you're not the person they call at 3 a.m. when they are having a panic attack. Right? So helping them, first of all, learn how to deal with things like that, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, on their own. You equipping them with the skills, equipping them with the ability to take care of themselves, and then having a contact person they can get in touch with when things are getting hard. That is very important. Otherwise, unless you're very comfortable with them calling you at 3 a.m, then that is very different. But ordinarily, I highly advise therapists to have boundaries, healthy boundaries, to know where work ends, and to have a life outside of therapy. So have friends who are not therapists. You can have some friends who are therapists because it is important for you to learn from your fellow professionals and to network with them. But then I highly advise that you have work that is outside of therapy. Have work that is outside psychology. Psychology cannot be your life and your hobby at the same time. Have friends outside. Have hobbies. Have places that you go to relax and rejuvenate. Have activities that you do that make you feel better, that help you take care of yourself. Do not ever sit and think that you're expected to be wearing the psychologist hat 24/7. But that is going to hurt you as a therapist, and it's going to hurt your clients if you become burnt out and then you go to therapy to meet your own needs. So have a life outside of therapy. That is all I'm saying. Build a community of people outside of therapy that can help you do other things. Go watch a film, go to the cinema, hang out with your family and friends outside of therapy. People who are not mental health professionals, hang out with those people a lot. They're going to open your mind. They're going to open your opportunities to network with other people. Go watch a game. If you're into rugby, go watch a game of rugby. Even if you're not, go there for the experience. I highly, by the way, recommend people, and not just therapists, by the way. This is generally. Let's stop limiting our lives by by acting as if we have to do things that we only like. It's okay for you to go and do things for the experience. So for example, even if you don't like rugby, just go for the experience, just go and see what it's like. You won't die. It will be, even if it's not as fun as it would have been if it's something that you truly liked, it will be an experience. So don't live a small life just because it is something that is not your interest. Oh, I need bambangi. Don't become that person. Be the person who explores things. Be the person who wants to see life from all angles. And so having friends outside of you, the mental health professional as a therapist, is going to be very helpful. Go meet other people, go watch a film, learn how to make music, go play the piano, I don't know, go play golf, do something, go read a book, just do something outside of being a therapist. That is going to help you become a better therapist. I promise you it will. So you don't have to constantly be in the therapist mode. So with that said, I want to end this live. I hope that these questions have been well answered for you. If there's something that I have left out that you think would have helped the answers become even more powerful, this is a wonderful time for you to put those answers in the comment section and let me know what I have left out. If there's something that I've spoken about that has touched you in one way or another and you want to share your experience, the comment section is your playground. Please share your experience there. And if this is something that you think would help somebody in your circles, in your WhatsApp group, share it with them. Be the first person in your WhatsApp group to always share mental health content. So we keep saying we don't know where to find mental health content, resources, nini. You who has listened to this, be the first person who shares mental health resources in your groups. Be the person mwenye kila mtu anajuanga umse akosangi kushare content ya mental health. Be that person. It makes a difference, because trust me, the way you stumbled upon it and found value out of it is the same way that if you share, somebody is going to stumble upon it and be like, oh, this is actually valuable to my life. And you never know who you're helping. So share this content with somebody. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know if this is valuable content. Let me know if you have any questions for next week. I will answer them as soon as I can. And thank you so much for coming through. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for the last couple of minutes. I've thoroughly enjoyed being here. I've thoroughly enjoyed sharing my knowledge. And I look forward to seeing you next week in the next Q&A. And until then, have a wonderful evening. See ya.